Today on the Big 6 in 60, Wemby and the Spurs beat the Thunder in double overtime.
A historic performance, one of the greatest.
The Canadiens send home the Sabres with an overtime winner in Game 7.
I cannot tell you how glad I am that I'm coming back to a win and not a loss.
And the Knicks prepare to face off against the Cavs.
It has been a long, winding road for both of these teams.
This is the Big 6 in 60, the 6 biggest national sports stories from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now. Thank you for making the Big 6 in 60 your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins.
The Spurs stole Game 1 from OKC in double overtime behind a huge night from Victor Wembanyama. Casey Vieira and Devin Brown with Locked On Spurs go inside the win.
A historic performance, one of the greatest. I'll jump out. I don't care if it's hyperbole. Maybe it isn't. It's that certainly most memorable Spurs playoff wins ever. A double overtime triumph over the Oklahoma City Thunder in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. He, of course, like I mentioned, NBA champion Devin Brown. I'm Casey Vieira. What a night, my friend. And again, another chapter to Victor Wembanyama's legacy in his first game in the Western Conference Finals. It was one certainly to behold, needless to say.
Casey, I'm going to lose my voice, yes, if there's like 6 more of these games, definitely. The coach came out of me. I kept shouting, pass it to number one, pass it to number one. Hey! And the times they did, he was good. Let's talk about that and more. Casey, let's have a great show.
This is what you'll be talking about.
And I mean, yeah, what we're trying to find what we're talking about. Let's try to give some rhyme or reason. We'll start in the fourth quarter. The bullet points that you do know is that, of course, SGA was awarded the MVP at the start. Nothing eventful. But the really notable part of this that we found out an hour before tip, De'Aaron Fox did not play tonight, ruled out with ankle soreness. Dylan Harper got the start. Okay, so this is a game, for the most part, the Spurs, though they never led by any more than 10 points, it felt like they were in control of. Thunder made their flurries. They even took a brief lead early in the start of the third quarter, but for the most part, it was one of those games where the Spurs, on the winning side of things, up 5, up 7, they can't turn that into 10, 12, 15. But then on the Thunder side of things, they can't get really any closer to that until the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game, where SGA, on a night where he missed 7 of his first 10 shots through 3 quarters, just could not get any sort of flow. He gets going, and ultimately, this thing is tied inside of a minute left. Victor gets an opportunity, hits a floater in the lane, if you want to call him anything Victor does, everything Victor does, a floater with 11 and a half seconds to go. It puts the Spurs up 2. SGA follows back with a layup of his own, a 3 with 3.3 seconds left to go. Victor falls off balance, desperation try. Chet actually blocks it, and we go to overtime. An OT that felt like this was not going to go San Antonio's direction. It was slipping away because we're seeing sloppy turnovers from Steph, who had 11 tonight. More on that in a minute. Dylan Harper can't get in a rhythm, and that Oklahoma City machine's really starting to rev up, really starting to get going. But Victor, in a spot where he doesn't get a whole lot of opportunities to do these, but you know when he gets the green light, he'll take it. Spurs down by 3, 30 seconds left to go. Wemby pulls the trigger from about 29 feet out, knocks it down. We're even at 108. 2 teams can't do anything with it in the closing seconds along the way, and we go to a double overtime, which we see Victor, and Devin alluded to it, just kind of simple basketball, give it to the biggest guy on the floor and let the guy go to work. And Victor did that. Quick dunk right off the rip. 2 free throws follow up on that. Had a big and one dunk after it was cut to a 1-point game inside a minute to go. That was followed up by a big-time block by Devin Vassell on Chet Holmgren, which essentially put the game on ice. And as a result, the Spurs walk away with a 122-115 victory in overtime, double overtime, to take a 1-0 series lead. The line for Wemby reads this: 41 points, 24 rebounds, 3 block shots in 49 minutes of work. Steph Castle, 17 and 11. He played 49 minutes. Vassell 51. All the starters tonight, they played 40-plus minutes. Of course, with double overtime, that's to be expected. Harper had 24 as well. SGA, high man on the OKC side, 24, but shot 7 of 23, I should say. Caruso had 31. He was the high man. SGA 24 on 7 of 23 shooting. Wow. Where do we start?
Yeah, where do we start?
I'm not particularly sure.
All right.
I'll let you decide that. But what we do know is that the San Antonio Spurs have regained home court advantage to start this Western Conference final.
Yeah, definitely, Casey. So I'm going to start by saying this, and I know everybody already knows this, but Victor completely covered up a lot of mistakes made, not only coaching wise but player wise. And I say that in the sense that there were some defensive mistakes fourth quarter and in the 2 overtimes that are unacceptable when you're in a game like this. There were some possessions of the basketball that were unacceptable when you're in a situation like this. But Victor once again covered up everything. When he stepped into that 3 from deep, I mean, I jumped up. I know there was a million other people that jumped up because you just had a feeling it was going in, right? And then from there, when they would get a 4-point lead, whether first overtime, second overtime, you're like, hammer them. Give the ball to Vic, in that mid area, and let him finish them off. And you saw the one-on-one kick in, Casey, and we've talked about that all year, where they get in trouble. And you're frustrated because every time that happened, OKC came down and hit a 3. That's what makes possessions so valuable, especially in the playoffs. So now you have a situation where they run the duck-in play, and the spin, they're actually, the first option in that is the spin lob. But you could see in both those situations, when Victor spins, if that defender's there, then he's told to duck in right in the middle of the lane. Both those plays, go-to plays for Mitch, effective. He scores, he finishes them off. But, Casey, yes, they're up 1-0. And they were in control of this game pretty much all game. You just want to see them play cleaner when it matters.
I think that's fair. Because when you are in control like they were for a majority of it, and in fairness, in some respects, it was like kind of surprising, right? Because it felt like every time OKC was going to be making that run, the Spurs just had this counterpunch every single time. And it wasn't until that last little flurry at the back end of the fourth quarter when they had their opportunity to make that one final push, they did. But even then, though, right? Like the Spurs, they had opportunities. Then they did hit him with that counterpunch, but it was just kind of one of those things where Shea got the last laugh, and then the final play at the end of regulation didn't particularly, as we know, go the Spurs ways neither. But that said, I mean, I think, kind of playing the devil's advocate side of it a little bit. It's the Oklahoma City Thunder, man. They're going to be all those things that we were just saying, that we're talking about, the situations that they're going to be putting the Spurs in. That's what a team like the Thunder does, right? So while the Spurs did have kind of their moments in that fourth quarter, I think that's to be expected with a team that's done this or never done this against a team that's reached the pinnacle of it, and they do it at obviously again the highest of levels. On top of that, the absence of De'Aaron Fox in certain stretches, that was prevalent, especially when Fox was, in my opinion, thrown all over the place. Or when Castle, I should say, was throwing the ball all over the place. That could have helped. But this is the perk of having number one on your team, right? This is the perk of having number one, where if these type of things happen, he's going to bail you out. He's going to bail you out and do it in the most important of spots, just like he did.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this about, the way Dylan Harper played, because I don't want to put him in a box because of what he was doing in the overtime. In the second overtime, he had a big crucial offensive rebound, and then he had another play where he kept the ball alive. But you see now, when you're used to playing 25, maybe capping out at 28 minutes off of the bench, and then you get thrown in where he was well over 40, you see where that difference comes and why after your rookie year, like if you go from the bench to starting, why it's important to get your body ready for those minutes, because in that first overtime, he couldn't find his balance. And it's because your body is wanting to do
Good
that,
point. Yeah.
but the mind is tired. So going into, when he, because he is going to start playing heavy minutes, he just has to get his body used to it, because when you see someone, trip and fall over this, that's what it is. You're wanting to do the right thing. It's just that you got to get everything moving in the right direction.
That's a good point. Sometimes it's just as simple as that, right?
Yeah. But here's the thing. Now, I understand he's 19 years old,
Yeah.
but it's the same thing where, if you're 37 at the Jewish Community Center, it's the same thing, Casey.
I got a few more weeks before I hit that magic number, in fairness. Hey, what did you think of the defensive effort on Shea tonight? Because through the first 3 quarters, he had 10 points. Only took 10 shots. That, of course, changed the rest of the way, kind of what you would expect with the most valuable player award winner of the league. But this was the type of deal where it took a collective team effort, and we saw it. We saw it a lot. It felt like I guess the second game between the two, the one that in San Antonio at the start of the year, it felt like they really started to get an answer kind of how to at least slow Shea. I say slow in quotes here. But collectively, what did you think of that effort tonight?
Okay. Can everybody see this?
No, I
All
can't.
right. That's okay. The box. Boxes and elbows. Shea can be anywhere over here. They were right here, Casey. Hey, load it up. Anytime he tried to get in that lane, he was dealing with body after body. Now, whatever he does, he kicks it right, he kicks it left. We're staying with our man. And for the most part, now there was a couple of breakdowns. That's why late in the game, you saw Wemby talking to Sean Sweeney, and they were showing that on camera. That was because, are we rotating? Are we not rotating? Because remember, he's guarding Chet in that corner. All right. And then one possession, he was guarding Jay Will in that corner. So Victor was making sure, do I come over? Do I stay home? All right. But at the end of the day, when an offensive player of Shea's abilities is looking and he sees 3 or 4 bodies in front of him, it's going to discourage him a little bit from going in there. Now, we know Shea, he's the MVP 2-time back-to-back. He was getting in there and for the most part finding Caruso. 8 threes on the night. He was doing a great job. But no one else really had a rhythm, so the Spurs were living with that. Caruso missed 2 key threes down the stretch. All right, and that's what the Spurs were banking on. The other 8, you congratulate him, pat him on the back, but the 2 that he missed are the 2 that put the Spurs in the victory column.
Yeah, one of those guys that was part of that collective effort to do that had, like I mentioned, the big block in the night Devin Vassell did on Chet Holmgren, but it was kind of something that was at that point not particularly surprising because he did a lot of that tonight.
It's time to reveal who made the biggest under-the-radar impact with today's X Factor.
And it was just a matter of just momentum stopping plays. You saw it something as simple as the third quarter where OKC gets a couple buckets to get it down to 4 and Vassell hits a 3 to end the quarter on a high note to go back 7. Something as simple, relatively speaking, as that compared to the dramatic block on Chet at the end that essentially iced the game. The job Devin Vassell did tonight, not to mention the 51 minutes on top of that. Absolutely fantastic. We'll talk about Victor, but this Victor's night does not happen without an effort like Devin Vassell.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that stepped up. You had mentioned De'Aaron Fox not playing, so it took a collective group. Hey, listen, also, and we always have like a top 3. Carter Bryant's minutes were huge, but our award winner Devin Vassell, he was great. Timely shots, defense, long 6'7", can do it. Give you a couple minutes on Shea. You're giving him a different look. Just a phenomenal game. And I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, Victor does get a lot of praise. But tonight, not only do we praise Victor because it's well-deserved, but Devin Vassell was our X factor. He was huge for them tonight.
The NBA playoffs are here, and every possession matters. If you're looking to get even closer to the action, FanDuel has a great offer to get you started. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's right, turn $5 into $150 in bonus bets just for getting started. I like using FanDuel during the playoffs because everything I need is right there in one place. You can check stats, trends, and matchups before making your picks, which makes the whole experience feel a lot more informed. It's a really easy app to navigate, and it makes playoff basketball even more engaging from start to finish. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game.
Welcome back to the Big Six in 60. Alex Newhook sent Montreal to the Eastern Conference Final last night with an overtime winner in Game 7 against the Buffalo Sabres. Laura Saba with Locked On Canadiens recaps a thriller.
I cannot tell you how glad I am that I'm coming back to a win and not a loss. But I will say this, did feel like for most of that game that it was going to be a loss. Now, Montreal after Game 6, disastrous effort on home ice. They started out beating the Buffalo Sabres and then allowed 7 unanswered goals, got Jakub Dobeš pulled. Not a great Saturday night, but not only that, left us with a lot of nerves and question marks for Game 7. And they themselves said they weren't nervous, but the rest of us were. You know, they were excited to play Game 7. That's not my idea of excitement. That's my idea of just torture. And throughout the game, it felt like torture because even while the Montreal Canadiens were up 1 goal, 2 goals, and I know they never trailed, but it constantly felt like Buffalo was going to win that game. Shot attempts were extremely lopsided. Last I checked, now, these stats will change, give or take a couple, but last I checked, the shot attempts were 73-34 in Buffalo's favor. Buffalo threw everything but the kitchen sink at the Montreal Canadiens. Now, the defense blocked a lot of shots. It was great. And Jakub Dobeš stood on his head. It was incredible. But for most of that game, it really did feel like Buffalo was going to be able to win it. Montreal got the bounces, though. A lot of bounces throughout that game. And I think it felt a little bit like the bounces that they got in Game 7 against Tampa. Sometimes you need the help of a little bit of luck to be able to win a game. I don't know that I would say that Montreal had a bad start to Game 7. In fact, they did score the first 2 goals. I didn't necessarily see, I know some people were saying that Buffalo was more dominant in the first few minutes. I'd say the first 10 minutes of that game. I didn't see it that way. I really felt that the Montreal Canadiens were taking advantage of every single opportunity, and obviously they got rewarded with 2 goals, one of them on the power play. But at the end of the day, after those 2 goals were scored, it felt like Buffalo was just dominant for the rest of regulation. And then in overtime, obviously it changed a little bit. It was constantly in Buffalo's zone. The play was constantly in Buffalo's zone. Buffalo had, I believe, 2 shots in that overtime. And Montreal really, I guess, turned it on when it mattered. I often ask myself, did they have to make it so hard? And I'll be really honest, I didn't really have a lot of hope for this game after seeing how Game 6 turned out. So credit to the Montreal Canadiens, but they really got lucky. They also did get unlucky. There were a lot of non-calls, particularly I think the most egregious one was when Jakub Dobeš got hit in the head. I really think that they should have at least given that a penalty to Zucker, but what do I know? I'm not a referee. I know it's Game 7. They put their whistles away. I completely understand that, but really, like, that was, I feel like, a blatant license to run goalies for the rest of the playoffs, and I really would have wanted that to be more of a message sending. Jakub Dobeš obviously turned out to be okay, given how he played for the rest of that game. But I really would have wanted a call on that. But at the end of the day, like, you know, they got some other bounces. There was the very early whistle on what would have been the go-ahead goal in this, for Buffalo, and potentially the series-winning goal. So the Montreal Canadiens did get some bounces. So I know, like, the philosophy is, like, we don't want to influence Game 7s or the outcomes of Game 7s, but that felt to me a bit blatant. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to complain. There were a lot of non-calls going both ways. And I really have to say that over the course of this series, it looked like Buffalo got better and better. And we got a lot of comments from a lot of Buffalo Sabres fans after the win saying that we weren't giving Buffalo credit. Here's the thing. this is not about giving Buffalo credit or not. Buffalo has been an incredible team. Obviously, you don't get to this point without being really good, right? We all saw the story, the Cinderella story. We all saw it being written in front of our eyes. But as a Montreal Canadiens fan, but not only that, as a person who hosts a Montreal Canadiens podcast, I watch 82 games of Montreal Canadiens hockey a year. Even if I'm not here, I miss it or I go out or whatever, I will catch up on the game. The only one I haven't watched is that 8-3 loss from Saturday. Even on my vacation, I was watching, the previous night's efforts, even though I was asleep during the games, right? Like, this is what I do. This is my job. And so when I say Montreal didn't play well, I mean Montreal didn't play well. It has nothing to do with giving Buffalo credit or not. So we got a lot of salty Buffalo fans saying like, well, Buffalo was good, or it's not that Montreal played bad, it's the Buffalo was just that good. I know when Montreal plays bad. I don't know how many Montreal Canadiens games you've watched, but I know they weren't on national television in the US all through the regular season. And a lot of the games, even if you were going out of your way to watch Buffalo, like Montreal, a lot of the games were on at the same time as the Sabres game. So I know what I'm talking about when I say Montreal does not play well. And Montreal has not played their best hockey against Buffalo. Game 1, Game 6, Game 7. They have not played well, and they have not played to the level that we've seen them play. They've not played to the level we saw them play against Tampa, and they're going to have to turn it on against Carolina. But at the end of the day, none of this is about not giving Buffalo enough credit. Buffalo is a really good team, but Montreal, when they play well, they play really well, and they were able to take it to the Buffalo Sabres for the most periods of the series. If you look at overall, the most number of periods, Montreal outplayed Buffalo. That's a fact. They did not outplay Buffalo in Game 7, though, and they ended up getting the bounces. All of this to say is that at the end of the day, this is 2 Game 7s in a row where Montreal has really stolen the game. And I think over the course of a playoff run, but also like throughout your contending window, which I will still maintain the Montreal Canadiens haven't even opened their contending window yet. You have to have luck, and there are going to be some really ugly games. And sometimes, especially if you're like on the Buffalo side and Tampa side, there will be a game that you look at and you say like, oh, the other team deserved that game, right? And in this case, maybe Buffalo did deserve that game. Maybe Tampa did deserve Game 7 against Montreal. But if you look at the series overall, Montreal outscored Buffalo. They did not trail in Game 7 at all. They outscored Buffalo. They played really well. There were stretches of time where it really looked like they were murdering the Buffalo Sabres. So at the end of the day, if you get to a Game 7, a lot of the times it's just going to be down to luck. But you can't say Montreal didn't deserve the series as a whole, is my point. This is the argument that I'm trying to make. Sorry, I'm back. I'm jet lagged, and I'm just trying to be coherent about this team. Bottom line, Montreal is now going to face Carolina in the Eastern Conference Final. Over the course of the next couple of days, like we did in the previous 2 series, we have our own little preview, and then we have a crossover preview. So I'll be talking to Zach from Locked On Hurricanes very, very soon. I'm not sure if that's going to drop on Wednesday or Thursday. We're still trying to figure out when we're going to record, but you will get the other side perspective. And I think we have to kind of forget the regular season where they swept Carolina. And we have to think about Carolina as not just a team with something to prove because they haven't gotten out of the conference finals. This is a team that has been a perennial contender for the last decade, and they have not done anything with it. So they have a lot to prove. They have not lost a game in the postseason yet. And the regular season is not important when it comes to elimination series. So it's a whole new season, a whole new series, a whole new ball game against Carolina. And we'll be previewing that over the next couple of days. Like I said, there'll be the Locked On Canadiens preview, and then there'll be the official crossover preview. You'll get all of it in the next couple of days.
The Thunder dropped Game 1 to San Antonio in double overtime, despite Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Oklahoma City battling late. Ryland Stiles with Locked On Thunder breaks down the loss.
The Thunder dropped Game 1, their first loss of the postseason. SGA needs to be better for Oklahoma City. You also saw in this game, Wembanyama was unstoppable for San Antonio, and the Thunder were outplayed in this contest and lost in double overtime, even as De'Aaron Fox, a late scratch in this one, downgraded to out due to that ankle soreness, that ankle sprain that he suffered. OKC fully healthy with J-Dub's return after missing the last 6. It was quick and early where OKC realized that they had to be in trouble in this contest and in this series. We talked about it all week long. This was going to be their most challenging series of the postseason. They've never seen a team like this in this postseason, and frankly, they didn't see one like this a year ago either. This has all the makings of a series that will go the distance, and you saw early on in this game, even before the 8-minute mark, OKC was forced to adjust, putting Alex Caruso in off the bench and taking off those double big lineups with Ihart and Chet, a pivot point that you saw them go to in the second half as well. And of course, in overtime also, I do not think that the double big lineups will be here to stay in Oklahoma City in this series. It led to a 7-0 start for San Antonio, off to an early run. Wemby dominated this game from start to finish. The Spurs dictated this contest. I mean, they funneled shots to who they wanted to have the ball in their hands. Now, to Caruso's credit, he made them pay in this contest. We'll talk about his career night coming up. But the Spurs were just the better basketball team. The Thunder had 4 fouls in 4.5 minutes, a step slow in this game to start defensively, and that maintained for the majority of the contest. OKC had battle in them, had fight in them. They went back and forth, but ultimately, too many missed opportunities, too many missteps. I mean, whenever the Thunder went out there and tried Aaron Wiggins in the second quarter, that was certainly a choice. Now, look, in fairness to all these rotational questions that we're going to get to on this show, I did say before the series that game 1 is a feel-it-out game because you're anticipating a longer series. However, I don't know that you needed to learn anything about the Wiggins minutes. I don't think that Wiggins is a player for these playoffs. And the 9-2 Spurs run at the second quarter answered it to start the second quarter, answered the Thunder's run that had them tied at 27 at the end of the first quarter. Look, the Thunder, they pivoted away from this double big lineup. They tried their best to course correct, but the combination of force and physicality from the Spurs was just too much to handle. And really, you look at these Spurs guards, they were able to handle OKC's ball pressure better than anybody can, and it led to some difficult shot making for San Antonio, and it led to these traditionally dominant lineups for Oklahoma City not being so in this contest, and the resistance not being felt as much in this contest. But ultimately, the Spurs were just a much better team the first 3 quarters, and it reflected 80-73 heading into the fourth quarter. The Spurs found way more cracks in OKC's defense for clean shots than the Thunder did in the Spurs defense. The Spurs hit way more difficult shots. They were the more physical team defensively without fouling. They were in proper positioning. They did a great job in this game, and even, of course, dominate on the boards, flipping the advantage there by tipping away rebounds. Being the aggressor is the key word for San Antonio. And even after the Thunder's hot start to the third quarter, the 12-4 run that they got off to in that third quarter, it ended up being dead even at 29-all at the end of the third quarter from a scoring standpoint in that frame. So OKC, in the non-Wemby minutes in the fourth quarter, they go from down 7 to down 9. And the Thunder, again, this is where the fight begins. They get it down to a 1-point game with 3 minutes to go. Vassell hit some timely threes in this game to have the Spurs win this contest. The Spurs were able to have so many late shot clock buckets that it really mounted on Oklahoma City and eventually swung this game in San Antonio's direction, of course, with Wemby being the guy for San Antonio and the best player in the world. He quickly has taken that mantle as such a young player. But in this game, it really boils down to the fourth quarter at the end, to the 2 overtimes. Chet Holmgren blocks Wemby's shot, game winner on the baseline, to send it to the first overtime. OKC gets up by 3 in that overtime due to their scrappy defense and deflections and steals, but Wemby hits that logo 3 to tie it up with 26 seconds remaining, and it goes to double overtime, and this is where it all falls apart. Like, not starting Caruso and Jada, but to start the second overtime, again, another choice by Oklahoma City that I'm not sure the reasoning behind, because they went to the scores table about 30 seconds into the double overtime period. So it's not like you stole them any sort of rest. They were just waiting on a dead ball, which is why it took them a bit later to get into the game. But had that dead ball came at 40 seconds, they would have only had 40 seconds of rest. So I would have understood it from a standpoint of Caruso isn't used to playing this many minutes, and J-Dub, of course, being in his first game back. didn't understand it from the standpoint of you sent them to the scores table so early. But the bottom line is this was horrific execution by Oklahoma City in the second overtime period, and the Thunder dropped game one. The Spurs thoroughly outplayed OKC for the vast majority of this game and more than deserved this win. You go down the list. The Spurs got up by 10 points. The Thunder could only grow their lead to 3, even in 10 lead changes and even in 8 ties. The Spurs dominate the glass 70-50. The Spurs had 21 turnovers of their own, and that's where OKC kind of found their most success, although they weren't perfect by any means in transition offensively, but they did get out in transition. The Thunder did win fast break points 16-7, but the Spurs absolutely dominate points in the paint 52-38, and the Spurs, of course, win second chance points. Look, the Spurs are a unique matchup for Oklahoma City. They're a unique matchup for anybody. The Spurs are absolutely championship tier. I do believe that the champion will come out of this series in this Western Conference. The biggest thing for San Antonio when it comes to regards to playing Oklahoma City, the Thunder and their entire team is predicated on being in the mid-range and getting into the paint to score. How many times do we talk about this Thunder team controlling the paint on both ends of the floor? They cannot do that against San Antonio. This is an inflection point of this series where Oklahoma City has to find a way to not be so timid like they were early on in attacking the paint and attacking the rim. They ease their way into the painted area. They ease their way into some difficult shots near the cup, but it's got to be a 48-minute effort of attacking the rim relentlessly, as we're going to get to here coming up. But the bottom line is Wemby, 41 points, 24 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and 3 blocks with a plus 16 in the plus minus, and OKC falls 122-115 in double overtime. There's just nothing to do against Wemby when it comes to stopping him. He is an unstoppable player, and there's adjustments OKC can make that I think could make his life a bit more challenging. But man, they can't magically grow and match him with his height, with his physicality, and with his skill set and athleticism. So it's going to be difficult for Oklahoma City. But now, dropping game one at home, it's the same thing as dropping game one to Denver and to Indiana. It makes game two an absolute must-win for Oklahoma City. All of the pressure is on OKC in this game too. The Spurs have already done their job as the road team by at least securing a split here in these first 2 contests. And if you're the Thunder, you have to play a more polished game than this. The Thunder are lucky that Alex Caruso had the game of his life to even be within spitting distance of San Antonio in this game, much less double overtime, much less with some opportunities squandered where they could have won this contest.
Welcome back to the Big Six in 60. The Cavs and Knicks meet in the Eastern Conference Finals with Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson headlining the matchup. Danny Cunningham and Gavin Shaw with Locked On Knicks and Cavs get together for a crossover episode to preview the series.
It has been a long, winding road for both of these teams. Both of these teams have had ups. Both of these teams have had downs. But ultimately, the 2 teams that were co-favorites entering this season to win the Eastern Conference and make it to the NBA Finals, despite the fact that they were the number 3 seed and the number 4 seed at the end of the regular season, they're meeting with a chance to go to the NBA Finals. So we've got a lot to get to. I just kind of want to start coming off of the series that the Knicks have had and coming off of the series the Cavs have had. Just what do you think what do Knicks fans need to know about the Cavs? What are Knicks fans most curious about with the Cavaliers entering this series?
I was going to say we could take a second and burn some Celtics jersey and Pistons jerseys as like a show of unity between our 2 shows and say, hey, yeah, you were the 1 and 2 seeds only in name, buddy. But no, we don't have time for that. So my first question is an extremely broad one that you're great at your job, so I trust you to turn it into a concise answer. But who are the real Cleveland Cavaliers? I've been listening to your pods throughout in anticipation of these 2 teams meeting up, and I just enjoy your show. But I know you said going to game 7, you said I have no idea what to predict because I don't really know what version of this team is going to show up. And that's an amazing statement because you travel with this team, you go to every road game, you follow this team as closely as anyone. And I think it's to your point, like no one was quite sure like what version of Cleveland you get. I think they've had some real lows in this playoffs, particularly in round 1 against Toronto. And they've also had some incredible highs, like beating Detroit 4 times out of 5 is no joke. Like 60-win team, they were a very scary potential opponent for the New York Knicks, and it is, I think, probably the most impressive accomplishment of the NBA playoffs. You could counter with how dominant the Knicks have been, but like that's extraordinary. Like that is a real feather in Cleveland's cap as like a legitimate NBA championship contender. And I don't know if that is like sloppiness at times. I don't know if that is disinterest at times. The other element of this is the physicality questions that I've brought up, probably much to the annoyance of Cavs fans over the year, that I think they've answered in a big way, beating arguably the most physical team in the NBA. That was a mess of a question, but I trust you get a good answer out of it.
So I have spent the last, I don't know if it's been 48 hours, 72 hours. I mean, I know I'm in my apartment right now as we record this, but like, this has been such a whirlwind. So I don't know how much time it has been, but I've spent a lot of time over the last several days asking people like, hey, am I bad at my job? Because just like, I have no feel for this team at times. I think that from a talent perspective, they're right there with the other four teams, maybe not Oklahoma City, but they're right there with, I think, the rest of this group in terms of just how good they can be, in terms of what their ceiling can be. But I don't know who's going to show up on a given night, because you watched that game 6 that they played against Detroit in Cleveland, which I thought coming off of the game 5 win they had in Detroit, where they're down by 9 with 2.5 minutes left. They come back, they tie the game at the end of regulation, actually have an opportunity to win in regulation, and then they win in overtime on the road to take a 3-2 series lead. I thought, you know what? That's the moment for this team. That's the moment where this team grows up, where they find that next level and they become a serious contender. And then they turn around the next day or 2 days later at home and just lay an absolute dud against the Knicks, or against the Pistons, excuse me. And I thought, okay, well, I don't know what to expect in game 7. And they come out and they play the best game that I think this group has played together. So I don't know what we're going to see on Tuesday night. And I know that's a bad answer. And again, maybe I'm bad at my job here, but when the Cavaliers are playing at their best, they're capable of, I think, beating anybody on any given night. They have a lot of answers to a lot of problems that other teams create. And I think that they do a great job of creating problems for other teams as well. But I don't know who they're going to be on Tuesday night. I don't know who they're going to be on Thursday night. I don't know who they're going to be on Saturday night. They're going to be great in some of these games. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not as great in some of these games. One of the biggest questions that I have personally about the team I cover is, did game 7, did that experience against the Pistons in Detroit, where they go into the house of a 60-win team? And to be fair, there were a lot of Cavs fans there. Like, there were a ton of Cavs fans inside of Little Caesars Arena. And that was, I don't think, necessarily the most, not to take a shot here, but playing in Detroit was not a super hostile environment for them in the postseason. Not the way that Madison Square Garden will be in. Frankly, not the way that Toronto was in the first round either. But did that make something click for them? Are they going to be a different group now moving forward? If they are, I think they have a really good chance in the series, but I can't say for certain that they will be.
I think it's a great point. And look, up until 2 weeks ago, the Knicks had all the same questions. I think they answered a lot of them with the level of precision. And my co-host XJ has been great about pointing this out, coming out in 2 closeout games and playing like they were the team on the brink of elimination instead of a team that was fighting off a team on the brink of elimination. But against a tougher opponent like the Knicks, like that'll still be a very real thing, and it will have to hold up for them. My next question is sort of like maybe like a proxy or a microcosm for my last question, and that is again like a broader one that I'll zoom in on the end. But or you know what, let me start zooming in. It's your confidence level in Donovan Mitchell's decision making. I thought last year Cleveland was a special passing team, and like that is just like I love like the early 2010 Spurs. Like that is the type of basketball I love watching, and I found myself watching a ton of Cleveland last year because I just thought they played beautiful basketball. They were buoyed by just extraordinary, like all-time great shooting across the roster. I can't remember if you had the stat or I heard it from someone else, but at some point in the season, like over a 20-game stretch, they basically had a Kevin Durant slash line as a team, and that was partially about their spacing and their shooting, and partially like about the playmaking and like those two things working in conjunction. This year in the playoffs, they've obviously been the most turnover prone team in the postseason. They are first in the NBA in isolation percentage in the playoffs. And Donovan Mitchell, as maybe a microcosm of this, his assists per game have gone down every single year in the postseason, like crashing down to 3.5. But I know he's coming off, I mean, given the importance of it, like one of the best playmaking playoff games of his life. And I heard you on your pod this morning, you're talking about it, how brilliant he was and like just consistently making the right play, making it easy on Evan Mobley, making it easy on Jared Allen. Like, what is the level of connectivity in this offense and synergy? And I guess just a sense of like, because this is something the Knicks have only recently found, like instead of just being 4 great players on the court, all doing what they do, these guys being complementary and like consistently making each other better. Because to me, that is kind of like the inflection point of Cleveland having an offensive ceiling where even as well as the Knicks are playing defensively, it not mattering and Cleveland just being able to put up a ton of points in this series.
I think they need Donovan to play the way he played in Game 7 consistently, because if you watch that game, and I know that you did, you could see that from the start. And he was averaging in the postseason. I don't know what his numbers are after Game 7 when he had 8 assists, but he entered that game in the 13 playoff games that he's played this year, averaging 2.9 assists per game, which was nearly cut in half from, I think it was 5.8 during the regular season. That number dropped a little bit once James Harden arrived. Like, he did genuinely do a good job of that for most of this season. And his role did change when the Cavs traded for James Harden, just like a little bit of a drop off there, I think, because naturally was nothing to be concerned about. But he assisted on 3 of the first 4 makes for the Cavs. And I thought that did a really good job of setting the tone as far as, like, Donovan needs to be able to get downhill. Donovan needs to be able to look to score when he's getting downhill, because he is excellent at that. He's super athletic. He's very strong, especially for a guy his size. That is where he's at his best. But he needs to consistently make the right decision when he gets there. And the right decision for him, I think more often than he's made it, has been making the pass to Evan Mobley or Jared Allen, because those guys are really good too. And you can see what those guys are capable of when they get the ball in advantageous positions. And I don't think Donovan had been doing that frequently enough throughout the postseason. And when he threw a lob to Evan Mobley on the very first possession, and that's not the way the Cavs designed that play. They wanted to get Jared Allen to touch. They wanted Jared Allen to score the first basket of that game, but it ended up being a bit of a broken play, and it ended on a Donovan Mitchell lob to Evan Mobley. And I thought to myself, and I may have said out loud, it's like, okay, this is different. This feels different. So this kind of gets back to my first question, or my first answer about the inconsistencies with the Cavs, because are they going to be the team that was in Game 7? I don't know. Is Donovan Mitchell going to play like the guy that he was in Game 7? If he does, Cleveland's offense has, I think, other gears that they can get to, because their assist percentage had been down, particularly in that series against Detroit. They had 31 assists on 43 made baskets against the Pistons. And some of that stuff, like, was, I thought, really, really special offense against a really good defense. And maybe the Pistons ran out of gas, certainly. But I thought that it all started because Donovan set the tone. And James Harden's going to be that playmaker. His shot is going to come and go. He's done a great job of getting others involved. And I think that has really elevated Cleveland's offense. But if Donovan Mitchell is doing that too, I don't know how many answers even the best defenses in basketball are going to have for Cleveland's offense.
Welcome back to the Big Six in 60. Texas A&M landed a major recruiting win with 5-star offensive tackle Mark Matthews. Matt Gallatin with Locked On Aggies explains what it means.
This is a massive, massive deal for the Aggies. Mark Matthews, the number 1 offensive tackle in the country per the 24/7 Sports composite ranking, the number 5 player overall. He's also the number 3 player overall per the standard 24/7 Sports ranking. And in terms of the On3 and Rivals industry ranking, he is still he's the number 1 offensive tackle pretty much across the country in terms of everybody except for ESPN. He becomes the 5th 5-star commitment of this class for Texas A&M as well. And it really speaks to the elite nature of what Mike Elko is doing here in this 2027 class. I mean, it feels like he's just getting started. And it's just, this might be the most important piece that he has added to the class as well, Harrison.
Yeah, well, just first off, I think we're going to get copyright infringement for wearing white T-shirts from Josh Pate on the show. Both of us.
Yeah.
Now, you are wearing a hat, so you are breaking that infringement. And
you're not bald.
Yeah, and I'm out bald. Neither are you. Hopefully not, at least. I know you went out of town.
No, we're not bald.
Okay. All right. So he made it back fine. In terms of Mark Matthews, Matt, the first question really for me is, man, how many spots do they have left in the offensive line room? Like, you're still after Albert Simeon and a couple other guys in this class. You already have 3 offensive tackles, listed offensive tackles in this class, and Matthews. You also have Caden Scott and Demarion Johnson. So that's 3 listed offensive tackles. You have an interior offensive lineman commit right now in Kennedy Brown. Like, this is already shaping up to be a really loaded offensive line class. And Mark Matthews, I mean, you beat out a lot of heavyweights here. Miami, the in-state school, legit. Mark Matthews is in their backyard. You go into Miami in a day and age where Miami is recruiting at a high level again, getting some of these 5-star offensive linemen to commit to their school and go in there. This is a program changing. This is a program defining type of recruitment win for you in terms of these are the type of high level guys that, yeah, you were getting in previous classes, from time to time. Obviously, we think about 2022, which we're going to talk about later in this show, and how loaded that class was. This is another one of those ones, Matt, where Mark Matthews could be a part of a championship team in 3 to 4 years. Like, this is the type of recruitment that you're going to have to win to compete at the very top level of college football. Georgia was in this, Florida was in this, Ohio State. There's a lot of big boys, Matt. A lot of programs with some deep pockets, obviously A&M included there, and you went into the state of Florida and you won.
Yeah, and look, there are some out there who believe that Kennedy Brown is still going to play offensive tackle at the next level. So they could have 4 offensive tackles on the roster right now, on the commitment class right now. We don't really know. Kennedy Brown could kick inside. Demarion Johnson, I think, is being heavily pursued by some other programs. Maybe the odds that all 4 of these guys make it to early signing day are a little slim, considering the absolute elite level of talent you have at the top. Maybe one of the ones that's not the same level of blue chip is going to be lured away somewhere else. We don't know, but the fact that they were able to pull this off, I mean, he's far and away their highest rated recruit in this class. They now have the number 1 class, undisputed number 1 class in the country. Like I said, it feels like they're just getting started. We're going to talk about that a little later, Harrison, but I'm not sure if everybody who watches this show really knows what they're getting yet in Mark Matthews Jr. And I'm going to play you a couple videos that I want you to see, just so you can kind of get a sense of this kid's personality, we'll say. This is him committing.
Where the jersey at, man? We going to get up, baby! Yeah! Man, let's go! Oh, my God! Yeah! Man, look at the jersey! Where my cowboy hat at, baby? Come on, man.
I mean, that's borderline iconic, I would say. That's video number 1. But my favorite video, Harrison, was the one that he did a one-on-one interview with Joseph Hastings of On3, recently hired by On3. And he, like, this dude is, like, it's almost borderline unhinged, but, like, in a good way. Check this one out.
CEO out here today with new Texas A&M 5-star offensive lineman commit Mark Matthews. Mark, how you feeling?
I'm feeling blessed. I'm feeling great. You know it. Read the jersey. Yep. That's me.
What was it about A&M, man, that got them to get you on board?
The family feeling, the staff they got, the environment, Coach Elko, just everything they got going on right now.
And I don't think you're the last 5-star to join A&M. At least you're hoping that won't be the case. Who are you trying to recruit to A&M with you now?
You know. Caden Henderson. I ain't going to say too much, but you want to be great, you know where to go, man. Building something special, 100%. Elko era!
And what's your pitch to them, man?
Elko era. That's all I got to say.
That's all you got to say?
Mm-hmm.
Last thing for A&M's fan base, what's your message to them? Who are they getting in Mark Matthews?
They're getting a dog. They're getting someone that's going to finish plays, pancake people, and someone that's going to work and push his teammates. Elko era. Elko era!
It's the Heisman pose at the end for me, for the offensive tackle. I mean, this guy is amazing. I love his personality. I think he's going to be a leader of this class. You can kind of hear at the end there too. Caden Henderson is a guy that the 5-star linebacker is a guy that he's going to be trying to recruit to Texas A&M. Sounded like he was about to say Eric McFarland as well before he stopped himself. But that was a treat, man. I can't wait to get this kid on campus.
He's one of the more outgoing offensive linemen that I remember. Like, usually offensive linemen are pretty quiet. You do have some personalities. Matt, I found it in my experience. Defensive line are the real personality guys. Like,
yeah,
those guys are outgoing. Those guys are lively. Those guys are kind of similar to Mark Matthews in terms of how they go about carrying themselves and stuff like that. Usually his offensive line is a little bit more reserved. Mark Matthews is anything but reserved, and it's fun to watch. Really fun to watch. I wasn't aware of the personality that Mark Matthews is. Wasn't expecting that. Like, obviously, the rush that you get from announcing your decision, a lifetime decision here in terms of obviously how much his life will change. Just having the chance to go to Texas A&M and play for Texas A&M and beyond that. Obviously, there's an excitement around that. But I mean, it was overload for Mark Matthews. Like, this was a decision that I'm sure he's weighed for a long time. Obviously, A&M's a program that's been recruiting him for a while, and to finally put it out there for the world to see, like, hey, this is where I'm going to school. I'm sure that's something that's an excitement and a rush that not many get to realize in today's world. I'm excited to see what he looks like, Matt. I also am curious to see kind of how this class shapes out, because you did mention it is already stacking up to be a really good class, and Mark Matthews has no intentions of letting that slow down if he gets his way in terms of his top targets.
Let's talk about what the Aggies are actually getting on the field with Mark Matthews Jr. We saw his personality. Now it's time to talk about the football player. And I love going through 24/7's scouting reports. And I think they do a really good job with these things. Andrew Ivan's one of the best in the business. He says that Mark Matthews Jr. reminds us of Tristan Wirfs, the elite offensive tackle that came out of Iowa and has had a tremendous NFL career. He labels him as an athletic offensive tackle with the quickness and mobility to eventually man the hot corner at the game's highest levels. Still far from a complete product after starting his prep career off as a defensive lineman, but has put extremely encouraging stretches of tape on film while facing stiff competition. He fires out of his stance and initiates contact, moves with excellent balance and posture, extends the arc in pass sets with an elite kick slide, will unlock the hips and on angle move blocks and get his head around, darts into space when asked to climb, and looks to finish. Likely to face an initial adjustment period, but projects as a multi-year starter for a college football playoff contender with early round of the NFL draft upside. That all sounds pretty fantastic to me.
Yeah, really fantastic to you. I think he's the number 6 overall player. I think 6 nationally in the Rivals composite rankings, which obviously takes the industry as a whole, not composite, the industry rankings they call it. And 247 is the composite rankings. Number 6 player, number 1 player overall at his position. Matt, it's mind-boggling to me. They have 4 players inside the top 20, 5 inside the top 30, and 6 inside the top 40. So, like, you're getting dudes in this class, and Mark Matthews is obviously atop this list. I don't know if they end up topping him in terms of getting a higher rated player than Mark Matthews. I think he's obviously probably going to end up the top rated player in this class, and his addition comes at a time where A&M certainly needs this reinforcement on the offensive line. You lost 5 starting offensive linemen last year. Obviously you lost your
5 of your top 6, but yeah,
5 of your top 6 offensive linemen. Obviously, when we say that, there is the added caveat of you had a 6th rotational offensive lineman who essentially was a starter for you at times over the last few years, which is why we can kind of say you lost 5 of your top 6, as Matt said. And you're looking to rebuild. You're looking to reload at that position. Obviously, you went to the portal this past year. You brought in Miller Forrestall, who projects as one of your starting offensive tackles. You got some in-house options that are looking to compete and take over one of those that other spot that's left open. And Mark Matthews is going to have to come in right behind him and kind of set the class, set the tone for the next group of starting offensive tackles. Matt, it's not a surprise to me that they're going heavy at the offensive line for this class, considering the exodus that you had at that position, especially offensive tackle. It's really going to be interesting to see kind of what the rest of this class shapes up to be, because I mean, let's not make more, let's not overlook it, Matt. Mark Matthews ain't cheap in today's world. Getting a top-rated offensive tackle, a 5-star offensive tackle, like that's traditionally you would expect that to be one of your highest-paid positions in the college football recruiting world, and you have Mark Matthews up there, and you have 2 other guys outside of him that are at that position who aren't also going to come cheap. The budget in today's world of college football is going to be just to see the impact on that. Can A&M go out there and land several other 5-stars at different positions and still fill this class, which is already, as you said, the number 1 rated class in the land?
Yeah, and listen, saying the competition that he faced was stiff. it might be putting it lightly, Harrison. I mean, St. Thomas Aquinas in Florida is one of the best football programs, high school football programs in the country, bar none. Last year, they went up against Mater Dei. Does everybody know the Mater Dei Monarchs from Santa Ana, California? One of the very top programs in the entire country. You talk about American Heritage, who just had Diabell come through at quarterback there. Lakeland, that fantastic football program. I mean, the state of Florida I wouldn't label it the same as the state of Texas. I think it competes with Georgia for, probably the number 2 slot in a very close race. The amount of talent that is down there in that state is really, really unbelievable. But in terms of how this impacts the depth chart too, Harrison, I'm interested to see what your take is on this. I don't know if he's the kind of player who's going to be able to come in and start year one. I think that it's possible. I think that him or Kennedy Brown could essentially start as a freshman. But you also have guys like Lamont Rogers on the roster. You also have guys like Robert Borden, who probably project as your starters next year after Wilcom Formby and Tyree Adams, assuming both of them go to the NFL. Maybe both of them don't. I don't know. Wilcom Formby is a junior, and Tyree Adams is also a junior. So they both have 2 more years of eligibility remaining. So the fact that he is a developmental prospect, as they said in the scouting report, and he won't have to come in and immediately start as a freshman, even though he's probably capable of doing so with his skill set. I think he's going to be in a really, really good situation, sitting there with Adam Cushing at offensive tackle. And, it's going to be a really, really, really good situation for him to be in.
Welcome back to the Big Six in 60. Charles Woodson Jr. is following in his father's path after committing to Michigan over the weekend. Isaiah Hole with Locked On Wolverines gets into the legacy pickup.
Did not spend a lot of time on the Charles Woodson highlight reel. I don't have my own evaluations. We're going to Andrew Ivins over at 24/7 Sports. Here's what he had to say about Charles Woodson Jr. Obviously, we've got more to say about him than this, but let's start with the evaluation. Smart safety with best-in-class type of bloodlines that made noticeable strides between sophomore and junior campaign. Starts forward with conviction in run support, taking sound angles to the football despite not being the largest defender at this stage. Flashes solid range from a single and 2 high look. Shows promising awareness in both zone and man coverage as he gets to the catch point and will play through hands. Lack of testing data and speed markers is not ideal, but closes gaps in pads and is ripped off long runs. In the return game, I don't have this up here, should be viewed as a potential starter of the power forward based on what he put on tape. As an 11th grader, must add some mass in coming years, but the ability to process on the back end is encouraging. I think that he's properly evaluated in the sense that he's 155 pounds, right? So yeah, he's not a guy you're going to be able to put out there quickly. But unsurprisingly, he is the son of Charles Woodson. So has the know-how, has the understanding, knows what he's supposed to do here. So I think that that's the most important thing for a player at that stage, right? Is to be able to have the understanding. Because if you understand the game and understand this happens, this is where I'm supposed to be, this is what I'm supposed to do, all that stuff, that's going to everything will work itself out a little bit more naturally than if you have the physical tools but can't understand where to go, where to be. Sometimes it works out that way, but it's I think a little bit more rare. That's where you see guys take that big step forward. So they have an understanding what they're supposed to do. And that's what Charles Woodson Jr. has. So obviously, let's talk about the elephant in the room. How it is big time for these Wolverines to get a legacy of this caliber. I remember when Tom Brady's son was born, he was like, "Oh, I'm going to raise him to be a quarterback who's going to play at the University of Michigan." And Jack's getting older now. I don't know where he is or isn't. I don't even know how old he actually is. I just know that he's old enough to kind of sometimes be out and about with Tom. But I don't really, like that felt like a little bit more of a pipe dream. Sometimes like it feels like a pipe dream. It's like the same way that when people are like, all right, I know exactly what this new staff should be. Tom Brady as the quarterbacks coach, Charles Woodson as the defensive backs coach. You start going down the line, and be like Lamar Woodley as the edge rusher coach. You just start picking like greats, like recent greats, and say like, yeah, that's the guy. I think the same thing can kind of be said to some degree when it comes to their progeny, but at the same time, like it's that much more inspiring when when they actually are like a D1 level and you can get them to campus. And to me, like it's kind of surprising it took even this long. I thought that I wrote it up. I probably have a draft somewhere from like a year ago for Charles Woodson Jr. that I just forgot about at this point. So I think that it's big to get a guy that has this understanding and has the frame, but doesn't necessarily have the mass, and seems to just understand exactly what he's supposed to be doing. That's how I want to talk about him more than like, Charles Woodson Jr., he's going to win the Heisman. Just like his dad, like I think that's unrealistic and unfair. So I think that it's big that that Michigan's able to get him into the class. Plus, he's also going to be a great ambassador. You just know he's going to be and if nothing else, it gets Charles maybe around even more. I mean, he's around a lot as it is. It's not like he's not like Tom Brady. Tom Brady's been back 3 times, I think, since he's been gone. This past year against Ohio State, 2016 against Colorado, and then he came during the Hoke years in fall camp. Every man in this room is counting on you. That speech. But I think that it's all bonuses. It's all good. Some might look at it like I saw there was a message board geniuses post with someone, like, oh, just this guy, like, shut up. Like some things like outside of the potential side have upsides that you can't quantify. Right. Even sometimes like a guy that doesn't necessarily work out, like Shane Morris didn't reach the potential he was expected to. Michael Ferns never did even, he was on campus for like a year, but like end up being like the leaders of the classes, help build the class. I think Charles Woodson Jr. can have that just for no other reason than his name. You can just kind of point to him and say, there you go.
That's all for today's Big 6 in 60. If you follow basketball, football, or college sports, the Big 3 in 30 has a half hour on the biggest news in the NFL, the NBA, and on campus, going up every weekday just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA, the Big 3 in 30 NFL, or the Big 3 in 30 college, wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 6 in 60.